What is going on? Excuse me. Welcome to the Mission Ready Men briefing, where masculinity has not been recalled and faith has not been neutered. Today is Thursday, January 22nd, and we are engaged in spiritual warfare, dressed up as suicidal empathy and dressed up as progress. So we're done pretending, we're done pulling punches, and we are never going to apologize. You are not going to get soy lattes and group hugs right on through here. Now, I want to start off with something pretty, a couple of things actually that are pretty amazing. And the first time I saw this, the first time my wife and I both saw this, we were dying laughing. So let's start off with something a little funny and check this out. No, not that. There we go. If you haven't seen this, be prepared because this is awesome.
I tell you, when CNN got rid of him, they didn't wipe hard enough. Tom Lemon is the dingleberry hanging off the ass of American journalism, okay? And let me tell you, when CNN got rid of him, they didn't wipe hard enough. Tom Lemon.
That was James Woods. James Woods is a national treasure. That was absolutely amazing. And just to start us off with another little another fantastic video. People are fed up. People are absolutely fed up, and this guy is no exception.
Oh. Swear to God, I'm gonna fuck you up, bro. Ooh. Come on, motherfucker.
Down.
Get the fuck out of here and touch my fucking truck, bitch. Fuck out of the fucking road next time, you dumb fuck. Touch my fucking truck and tell me to use the fucking truck.
I know the language was a bit harsh, but wow, people are just done. People are done dealing with this madness. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them one bit. It was amazing. James Woods, my goodness, that was that was hilarious. All right, excuse me. There's a ton to get into, and honestly, I don't know. I know I say this all the time. I don't know if I'm going to get through it all because it's been, and I know this phrase has been probably overused a bit, but it's been like drinking from a fire hose. It's been absolutely amazing the number of stories that are coming through that we have to talk about. But the big one, obviously, is Trump in Davos. And for years, decades, the elites in Davos lectured us about accountability, a new world order, no votes, no consequences, just control. And they were going to be the ones to control it. And this week, that illusion was dashed. And even they had to admit that Trump is the big dog. He is in charge. He is the alpha. And globalists, like these people over at Davos, they're losing their power and influence. And their compatriots here at home keep failing the citizens. But Trump over there, he reestablished dominance and reestablished order. And it's been restored. So let's get after it. As I said, for decades, the WEF in Davos tried to portray itself as the throne room, basically, of governance, of global governance. You had billionaire CEOs, unelected bureaucrats, leftist heads of state, pretending that they were running things from this swanky ski lodge. Stakeholder capitalism, ESG, I'm so glad that is in its death throes. Climate nonsense, own nothing, eat bugs, love it. The whole cult package. And they didn't just discuss policy. They didn't just talk about the things that they thought would benefit people. They tried to replace national sovereignty with corporate governance. And it was working for a while. And then Trump hit the scene again. And this time he not as a guest, not as a partner or a collaborator, but as the guy swinging the big stick. And he let everybody know. He put everyone on notice. And one of my favorite clips from Davos wasn't actually Trump. There were a couple of his clips that we're going to get to, but this one right here. Nope, not that one. I think I overwrote it with another tab, but this one right here from Howard Lutnick. This one was absolutely outstanding. So check this out.
And the Trump administration. Okay. We are in Davos at the World Economic Forum. And the Trump administration and myself, we are here to make a very clear point. Globalization has failed the West and the United States of America. It's
Absolutely.
A failed policy. It is what the WEF has stood for, which is export, offshore, far shore, find the cheapest labor in the world, and the world is a better place for it. The fact is, it has left America behind. It has left the American workers behind. And what we are here to say is that America First is a different model, one that we encourage other countries to consider, which is that our work.
It's such a simple concept. I don't understand how so many countries, so many leftists don't want to put their own country, their own people first. It's baffling to me. It seems like a no-brainer. I don't get it.
Workers come first. We can have policies that impact our workers. Sovereignty is your borders. You're entitled to have borders. You shouldn't offshore your medicine. You shouldn't offshore your semiconductors. You shouldn't offshore your entire industrial base and have it be hollowed out beneath you. You should not be dependent for that which is fundamental to your sovereignty on any other nation. And if you're going to be dependent on someone, it darn well better be your best allies.
Nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. And again, I don't understand why this is such a difficult concept for some of these people to grasp. and or why they're just outright rejecting it. It doesn't make any sense to me. And if somebody can tell me how it makes sense, please enlighten me, dazzle us with your brilliance, because I don't get it. But Trump, when he spoke, he was not there to talk about finding common ground. He was not there to appease the left. He was not there to bow down to the global governance that the WEF has stood for so long. He was there to emphasize, just like what Lutnick said, America first, and no longer support a system. Not that he ever really did support it, but the United States was no longer going to support a system that worked against its own interests. His speech, either you loved it or you hated it. A lot of people said he rambled, and of course the left talked about dementia. They talked about how he was on a mental decline or whatever. That nothing could be further from the truth. But he talked about rapid improvements and approvals for AI, energy infrastructure, deregulation, tariffs for people who didn't, for countries that didn't cooperate, and a strategic realism over this global governance fantasy. And I don't know if the people, the elites over there actually thought that he was gonna deliver the same rhetoric that most people did, but no, he went over there and he introduced them to the leverage that the United States holds. This wasn't a speech of capitulation. This was a terms and conditions briefing. And he delivered his terms and conditions in no uncertain terms. And that was also glorious.
So we want a piece of ice for world protection, and they won't give it. We've never asked for anything else, and we could have kept that piece of land, and we didn't. So they have a choice. You can say yes, and we will be very appreciative, or you can say no, and we will remember.
You can say no, and we will remember. That was amazing. I loved it. And that's how the United States should be. We run things. We're in charge. And Trump delivered that message loud and clear. And of course, he was talking about Greenland. And it's not like he was just throwing that out there. You may not like how he went about his negotiations for Greenland, but that just means that you haven't been paying attention. You have not been paying attention. And we'll get to that here in a second. Trump framed Greenland as a strategic asset, which it is. Not some moral debate, not just acquiring land for land's sake. This is essential for our Arctic security, shipping lanes, rare earth minerals, military positioning. And it's not like Trump didn't make this known. I mean, he wanted to acquire Greenland in his first term. This was not something new. And Davos's response was interesting, to say the least, because Davos actually invited Greenland as a separate entity apart from Denmark, which that was shocking to a lot of people. Because that's not, and Denmark was pissed off. They said that they violated international norms and all the rest of it. So they boycotted, and some people in Europe, some leaders in Europe melted down. But sovereignty matters. It always has. And Trump reasserted that in Davos. And they basically helped Trump in the negotiations when they did that. When they invited Greenland separate and apart from Denmark, they basically intervened on Trump's behalf in these negotiations. And like I said, you may not like how he went about it, because a framework for a deal has been struck. You might not like how he went about it. But like I said, you haven't been paying attention. This was classic art of the deal negotiation. He wrote the book. This was him taking a maximalist position and then negotiating to get what he actually wanted. And it worked again. And I don't understand how people keep falling for this. It's really astonishing that they keep falling for this. And the media has been framing his appearance in Davos as Trump versus globalism. And that's kind of obvious and almost lazy, because what we are seeing is a reassertion, and I've said this before, a reassertion of America's dominance on the world stage, reintroducing the power hierarchy. We are the world's only real superpower. Let's just be honest. And Davos and the WEF only really work when America pays, when America complies, and America pretends that NGOs and world governance outrank nation states. And Trump shattered that illusion. And we're not hearing anything about climate nonsense. We're not hearing anything about ESG. And now they're pivoting to Trump's priorities, AI, crypto, and all the rest of it, like that's the way it's always been. And Trump has turned that on its head, and I'm here for it. And Davos is not collapsing, did not collapse because of flowery words of persuasion. It collapsed because he was no longer giving permission. It's that plain and simple. The global elites in Davos, they didn't lose an argument. They didn't lose a negotiation. They lost leverage. And the applause that Trump got wasn't agreement necessarily. It was just recognition that he was right. The recognition that this era of one world government, corporate governance is over. And sovereign nation states are back, led by the United States. 56 years of WEF nonsense in Davos. And it took one speech from one man to remind everyone how the world really works. And I'm here for it. I am absolutely here for it. There was, I don't think I actually have it. No, I don't have it, but there was a clip of the Secretary General basically saying what I just said, that Trump was right. And that couldn't have gone over well with his global elite compatriots. I know it couldn't have. But here we are. All right. I want to circle back to Greenland for a second, because there was, as I mentioned, a framework that that was put in place, a framework for a deal, and it involves, and this was a deal that nobody thought was really going to happen, but let's take a look. You can't see it. Never mind. But basically, it involves small pockets of land for the United States. The United States is going to be heavily involved in Greenland's mineral rights, rare earth minerals. It has the deal has an indefinite duration. An indefinite duration, and that is amazing, because it's basically an update to the 1951 agreement between the United States and Denmark, and now this is going to go on until some leftist, until Republicans give up the ghost and some leftist gets in charge and they decide to turn back the clock and give it all up. Hopefully, it gets to a point where what's in place makes that impossible, but we'll see. But this is designed to block Russian and Chinese influence in the Arctic. And that's essential to our safety and security, to our national security. And they're going to put some Golden Dome pieces up there, and that is President Trump. When he mentioned it in his speech, and he told Bibi Netanyahu to stop taking credit for it because it's our technology. It is, and I'm sure he was joking, but that was that was a moment of levity that a lot of people actually thought was, or from what I saw online, a lot of people thought was Trump taking a shot at Bibi. Maybe it was, but it seemed to me to be said in a joking fashion. But we're going to have the Golden Dome up there to deter Russia and Chinese aggression. Why would anyone be against that? I know Canada's probably against it because Carney was talking about a new world order between Canada and China, and he negotiated this agreement, which makes us being in charge of Greenland that much more important. So Greenland, this deal with Greenland is going to be talked about for a long time. And as long as we can keep it moving forward, this is going to be pivotal and it's going to be one of the President Trump is going to go down as one of the greatest presidents in our history. And the left can whine and cry about it all they want, but it is what it is. It is what it is. And they can whine, they can cry, but they're just going to have to deal with it. They're going to have to deal with it. All right, I want to move on to, we'll go back to something that we've talked about a lot, and that's what's going on in Minneapolis. And something that I didn't really touch on much in some of our previous discussions about this. The left has framed ICE, the police, law enforcement in total as the enemy. And they're trying to say that getting rid of ICE, defunding the police is all about community safety, that ICE is a threat. And the activists who are interfering in ICE and police operations, they're the ones who are protecting the innocent. Even though it turns out they're protecting criminal illegal aliens, they're protecting pedophiles, they're protecting child abusers, they're protecting murderers, rapists, all manner of evil monsters who are just walking the streets. But the police and ICE who are going after these people, they're the enemy somehow. Something that we don't talk about enough is how we actually got here. How did we get here? And we got here because, simply put, they just refused to cooperate. And I talked about before how it used to be just commonplace that when an illegal alien was released from jail after serving their time, which they don't really do anymore, they would immediately get shuffled off to ICE for deportation. And that doesn't happen anymore. This creates a whole new class of victims that would never have been victimized if they had just continued to do what we all know is the right thing. And what ICE has been doing, getting rid of child predators, getting rid of human traffickers, getting rid of violent repeat offenders. These are the people that they're protecting. The people who are interfering in these operations are protecting these scumbags. And for whatever reason, they seem to think that is just fine. I don't get it. I really don't get it. There was a viral clip of an ICE agent pulling up on a journalist, telling them exactly that. When they're honking the horns and they're interfering in these operations, they're preventing them from arresting these violent pedophiles and all the rest of it. And in that particular clip, it turns out that what they did prevented them from locking up 2 child predators. And they don't care. They don't care about the victims. They care about the perpetrators. And when did that flip? It's baffling to me. They're disrupting operations, exposing locations. The surveillance operations get compromised, and that allows the suspects to flee. And they're framing these protests as moral resistance. And they're trying to claim the high ground, even though they're assaulting counter-protesters, they're robbing counter-protesters, robbing journalists who are just there documenting the chaos. This is mob violence. It's criminal, and they're getting a pass. They're getting a pass. But you know who's not getting a pass? The people who stormed City's church in Minneapolis. They disrupted worship service. They harassed the congregants. They frightened the children. They were intimidating them. That bearded jackwagon who was yelling at the parishioners and whatnot. That was not protest. That was lawlessness. And thankfully, Pam Bondi has finally made some arrests. She's been under a lot of scrutiny. A lot of people want to see her gone. I can be included in that because I think she's done a terrible job. I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. I wanted to give her time. But I will give her credit for this. She's gotten one right. She finally got one right. And she announced the arrest of 2 suspects who mobbed that Minneapolis church. She said minutes ago at my direction, and this was a couple hours ago now, HSI HQ and FBI agents executed an arrest in Minnesota. So far, we have arrested Nakima Levy Armstrong, who allegedly played a key role in organizing the coordinated attack on City's church in St. Paul, Minnesota. And then, as an update, they arrested Chantel Louisa Allen as well. And let's see if we can, there was a picture of the 2 of them, but it's not really important at this point. They finally locked these people up. Now, she's doing okay. This is great. Locking these people up who did this. But there's one notable name missing: Don Lemon. He was, I don't want to say instrumental, but he was definitely involved in the planning of this. He was there intimidating the crowd, intimidating the congregants, getting up in the preacher's face. He needs to be locked up too. As long as these people don't face any consequences, they're going to continue to do what they do. And this is a great first step for Bondi. This is a great first step for Bondi, but she needs to lock up Don Lemon as well. Donna Lemonade. Because they, for whatever reason, like I said, whenever we get into some of these stories, I get mystified because it goes against everything that rational people should find acceptable. They claim that these are peaceful protests. There's nothing peaceful about it. They claim that ICE is targeting American citizens. They're not. American citizens who are in the company of these criminal illegal aliens, they're going to get swept up. And the chances are, if they're going after these criminals and American citizens happen to be in the company of these people, there is an excellent chance that they are criminals too. So lock them up. If American citizens get swept up by ICE and they're in the company of these people, you are the company you keep. And they, and this is the part that really pisses me off, is that they have absolutely no regard for the actual victims. They have no regard for the children who are being abused and trafficked. They have no regard for the victims who were raped and murdered, tortured by these animals. They have no regard for the members of the community who have to deal with these repeat offenders, these violent repeat offenders being unleashed into their communities. And they say that we're looking out for our neighbors. No, the people who are saying that have been bussed in from other places and are just there to agitate. But the actual citizens of these places are dealing with animals being unleashed into their communities. And the people who are protesting on behalf of these animals have no regard for those victims. And that to me is infuriating. Absolutely infuriating. And so when you have this, you have law enforcement being put at risk and more victims being created because they're allowing these people out on the street to do their crimes. And it's the collateral damage of this activism, which is basically just aiding and abetting. The people they claim that they want to protect are the ones who are paying the price dearly. And again, completely mystifies me that they think this is okay. That we're the ones who have the problem because we can't understand why they're in favor of these criminals, why we actually have concern for the victims of these criminals. ICE is not the threat. The police are not the threat. The danger does not come from enforcement. Targeted operations save lives. And what would save even more lives is if they actually cooperated and allowed ICE to go into the jails and arrest these people, or if they released them into ICE custody after their sentences were up. That would save many more lives. But these targeted operations are the best that they can do under the circumstances, and pretending otherwise is what's getting people hurt. It's not about politics. This goes beyond politics. This is about whether or not we want to stop predators or enable them. I know which side I'm on. I know which side people with common sense and a couple of firing neurons are on. It's the rest of them we got to worry about. Utterly, utterly ridiculous. All right, y'all. Thank you all for being in the chat. I see the chat is blowing up. I appreciate it. Please be respectful. We love disagreement, but we will not tolerate being rude or disrespectful in any way. So again, thank you all for being here. We appreciate it. And I want to get a word in from our sponsor today. And our sponsor for today's show is Carry Girl Gear. Valentine's Day is coming up. So fellas, if you want to get it right, head over to carrygirl.com. They've got bold, stylish shirts, designs, and accessories that she will absolutely love and want to wear. So if you're short on time, not sure what to pick, go ahead and grab a gift card and let her choose for the easy win. You will be a hero. So visit carrygirl.com and make Valentine's Day count. Visit carrygirl.com today. All right, y'all. I am Biggie, and you're watching or listening to the Mission Ready Men briefing right here on the SHR Media Network, where you can also catch our great lineup, Sackhead Sean with the Edge of Liberty, every Monday and Wednesday at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. Jersey Joe, the Reaver of Common Sense, every Monday and Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. And BZ with the Berserk Bobcat Saloon every Tuesday and Thursday at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. He is going to be on tonight, and I know he is going to have a banger of a show. So please be sure to like and subscribe and share all of these great shows, and pray for us that we continue to have a breakthrough. We are growing, and I want to thank you all for that. Last I looked, we were at 819 subscribers, I believe. It may be more than that. So thank you all. We have seen a nice spike in our subscriptions. So we really appreciate you liking, subscribing, and sharing all these episodes, because we really want to continue to reach as many people as we possibly can. All right, now back to the briefing. And we're going to, we're actually going to stick in Minneapolis for a little bit again. And the reason is Europe has tolerated no-go zones. Europe has tolerated this idea that Muslims have the right to establish Sharia compliant zones where police and white people basically can't go. And what is happening now is Omar Fateh, I think that's how you pronounce his name. Really don't care actually if that's right. But he posted something the other day that I want to share and talk about. Omar Fateh posted this, and he says, "Cedar strong, white supremacists aren't welcome here. We protect our own." What he's saying basically is ICE better not show up. That's what he's saying. And somebody pushed back on him, David Marcus. You don't decide who is and who isn't welcome. We don't allow no-go zones. And he doubled down. And I know you can't really see it, but he doubled down and said, this is a no-go zone for white supremacists, obviously meaning ICE and probably law enforcement as a whole. No-go zones are not safety. They're not peace. They're permission. They believe they somehow have the authority to give certain people permission to operate freely in those zones, and others don't have that right. And for some reason, especially in Europe, but we've seen it happen here, politicians allow this nonsense. They allow it. Law enforcement in these areas is optional at best. And we saw during the George Floyd riots and that whole era, they actually formed their own so-called police forces. I believe it was CHOP or whatever it was in Seattle, where they actually had armed people posing as law enforcement for this ridiculous area called CHOP. But what eventually ends up happening is it leads to violence, assault, and then, as we just saw in Minneapolis, churches get targeted. And I don't want to relitigate that whole thing. But when the mob is allowed, and I know that we just talked about how they were arrested, or the ringleaders were arrested. But it should have never reached that pitch. It should have never gotten to that point, because they felt emboldened that we can do whatever we want. We're the mob. And these people disagree with us, so we're going to disrupt their lives. And make no mistake, the church has always been a target of these people when authority collapses. When churches are singled out, moral clarity goes away, and that gives rise to revolutionary chaos, because there's no longer a check and balance on it. Order is the enemy of the mob. What they're basically saying is your faith is tolerated until it isn't. And with Omar Fateh and all the rest of the people in I shouldn't say all the rest, the Muslims in Minneapolis, we know that they don't tolerate Christianity. Their holy book tells them to kill Christians. And I talked about Don Lemon, and I do want to show this, because this is one of the things that really irritates me about these. One of the things that really irritates me about these people, and let's listen to a little bit of Donna Lemonade confronting the pastor of that church.
It's shameful. It's shameful to interrupt a public gathering of Christians in worship.
But there were folks who will say,
I have to take care of my flock.
okay,
my
but listen,
family.
we live in there's a constitution in the First Amendment to freedom of speech and freedom to assemble and protest.
Yeah. We're here to worship. We're here to worship Jesus, because that's the hope of these cities. That's the hope of the world, is Jesus Christ.
I want to be very respectful. Please don't push me, though.
We're here to worship Jesus.
Yes.
That's why we're here. Okay, that's why we're here. Okay. That's what we're about.
Don't you think Jesus would be understanding
we're about
and love?
Do you think Jesus would be understanding and love these people? Jesus loves everybody. He loves everybody. But loving everybody doesn't mean surrender. They use love as a leash to try and control Christians. They use it as a gag order, like it somehow dominates every other aspect. Yes, Jesus loved sinners, but he didn't tolerate their sin. He didn't affirm their sin. The woman who was caught in adultery and brought to the temple in John chapter 8, he didn't condemn her. He told her to go and sin no more. He didn't say go and continue your lifestyle the way you have been. No, he said go and sin no more. That's not tolerating the sin. He went into the temple and overturned tables and drove out the money changers and the intruders. But he was defending the sacred space. He wasn't engaging in some indiscriminate act of violence. He was defending the faith. Loving someone does not require us to enable or affirm the sin. So loving the people who broke into that church and stormed the church doesn't mean we have to tolerate what they did. Doesn't mean we have to accept it. And notice how they never ask this question of the mobs that are engaging in this madness. The love only seems to go one way with these people. The mob is we're just expected to submit to the mob out of love or something. They don't, people like him who claim to be Christians, they don't quote Jesus to stop violence. They quote Jesus to stop the resistance. People really irritate me. And we talked about this a little bit before. I'm not going to dive real deep back into it, but the scripture is explicit. The shepherds are there to guard the sheep. They don't negotiate with wolves. We talked about Nehemiah last time. Arm the builders on the wall. I think we talked about self-defense from Exodus 22 as well. And in Luke 22, when Peter cuts off the ear of one of the soldiers, and Jesus Christ rebuked him. He wasn't rebuking Peter for using the violence. He was rebuking him for engaging in revenge and vengeance. He was rebuking the way he was using the violence. Vengeance is forbidden, but defense is required. And so I touched on this before. These churches need security. They need people who are there. If the preacher's not going to do it himself, they need people there who are going to stand up to this madness. Trained, disciplined, biblical defenders. Because faith without preparation is not trust. It's negligence. It's about stewardship. It's about understanding the church as sacred ground. not a protest stage, not a place where mobs can go and engage in their nonsense. What happened there is what happens when leaders, whether they be mayors, governors, or preachers, when they refuse to draw the line. So be faithful, be peaceful, but be prepared. God's house is a sanctuary, not a surrender zone. It's to be defended. All right. This is actually, you know what? I think I might move on from that too. Maybe I'll circle back to it if we have time, because I really want to get to this, because this is one of those things that it's not taking long to see the consequences. It's not taking long to see the consequences at all. And Virginia has gone full, I don't even know what the word is, because it's just, it's sad to see what has happened in Virginia. They just elected, and Spanberger was just sworn in, and it didn't take her long. It didn't take her long to completely just, I mean, she's already pretty well destroyed everything that Glenn Youngkin put in place. First day in office, she signed executive orders that, like I said, pretty much revoked everything that Glenn Youngkin did. And she set herself up as this moderate during the campaign. She was all about affordability, all about moderation, all about pragmatism. And then immediately issued executive action. Not gradual reform, but a leftist ideological blitzkrieg. And I really feel bad for Virginia, because that's where my parents live. And if you know my dad, he's not happy. He is not happy. Let's take a look at some of these new taxes that are being proposed in Virginia. This is amazing, utterly amazing. Now, you may not be able to really see it in this format, but let's take a look. 4.3 sales tax on Uber Eats, Amazon deliveries, a new sales tax on admissions to a wide variety of businesses, a new 10% tax bracket for anyone making over $1 million. She's raising the hotel tax, a ban on gas-powered leaf blowers. What? Guarantee to illegal aliens for free education. extend the time absentee ballots can be received after election day to 3 days, expanding ranked choice voting. These are just a few. This list is huge. Make it illegal to hand count ballots. And they want to put in place the ability to vote via the internet. And that's just a few, that's just a small sampling of some of the things that they're putting in place. But one of the big ones that just really irks me, beyond irks me, it pisses me off. They have passed an amendment to a law that allows abortion up to birth. Virginia Democrats have pushed through a radical constitutional amendment to enshrine abortions up to birth in the state constitution. It is going to go to the voters in November as a referendum after party line votes in the General Assembly. Now, I know people are going to say, that's not true. That's not what they're doing. That's not what the law says. Okay. You want to go there? Here we go. I know this might be a little hard to see, so I'm going to read it. HJ1, Constitutional Amendment, Fundamental Right to Reproductive Freedom. Constitutional Amendment provides that every individual has the fundamental right to reproductive freedom, and that such right shall not be directly or indirectly denied, burdened, or infringed upon unless justified by a compelling state interest as defined in this amendment and achieved by the least restrictive means. The amendment specifies that notwithstanding the other provisions of the amendment, the Commonwealth may regulate the provision of abortion care in the third trimester, provided that in no circumstance shall the Commonwealth prohibit an abortion that in the professional judgment of a physician is medically indicated to protect the life or physical or mental health of the pregnant individual, woman. When the professional judgment of a physician, the fetus is not viable. We've been down this road before. They will say that it's only if the fetus isn't viable, it's only in the interest of the health of the mother. But we like I said, we've been down this road before. The mental health of the mother can be anything. Anything. She just may not feel like being a mother that day. And these doctors will go along with it. We've seen it happen. So don't tell me that we're exaggerating. Don't tell me that that's not how it works. It's right there in black and white. They have no respect for life. Period. End of story. No respect for life. It's really amazing to me that you can warn people all you want. We told you this was coming. We told you Spanberger was not a moderate. We told you there was not going to be any pragmatism involved in her governance at all. She is a radical, rabid, left-wing activist. She signed executive orders to stop law enforcement from cooperating with ICE. She signed, well, there's a bill in place, SB 749, that basically bans what they call assault weapons. And in the bill, there's no grandfather clause. So if you own what they consider an assault weapon, AR-15, AK-47, any of the scary guns, if you own any of those, you will be a felon if you don't get rid of it. And you know what? I don't want Republicans, I don't want them to offer any amendments to it. And I'm gonna tell you why. They have been telling us for years, decades, no one is coming after your guns. This law goes after their guns. So Republicans in Virginia, and this stings, I don't like saying it, but Republicans should just let it happen. They should let it happen. Let them own it and then hang on them. But you said you weren't coming for anybody's guns, but you're taking these guns. Hang it on their heads. Now, I know Republicans are probably not going to do that. And I know a lot of people don't want them to do that, but that's my take. Make them own it. Use their words against them. Utterly insane. They love to say they're not coming for anybody's guns, but the first chance they get, she's been in office a week, even though we knew it was coming because the legislature was poised to do it. They know, because they control the House and the Senate in Virginia, it's going to get to her desk and it's going to pass. She's been going on about affordability, the tax increases that they propose are going to impact everyday hardworking Americans. And they don't seem to care. It's baffling to me how they think that taxing, you can't tax a country out of into prosperity. It can't be done. It has never been done. It never works. They promise affordability, and then the first thing they do is raise the cost of living on everyone. So Virginia is going to be in for it. Virginia is in for it. And like I said, my parents live there. I feel bad for them. When we lived in Texas, I tried to get them to come to Texas. Now I don't even want them to do that because Texas is not exactly the bastion of freedom and independence that their reputation has preceded. And trust me, we'll be talking about that as well. But this is the pattern. Like Virginia is bright blue at this point. Governor, lieutenant governor, and the legislature, all left-wing lunatics. And the first thing that they do, they raise taxes, they get rid of enforcement, and expand bureaucracy. This is a microcosm. This is a case study in left-wing governance. And it's unfolding in real time, rapidly. And this is just the beginning. This is the first week or two of her tenure as governor. What is it going to look like in 4 years? This isn't moderation. As I said, we knew, people who were paying attention knew she is not a moderate. This is momentum. And it is only picking up speed. The question is, what are we going to do about it? This is, we got to keep an eye on Virginia. Virginia was, for a long time, reliably red, and it has, the founding fathers are rolling over in their graves right about now, because this is terrible. This is a terrible look for Virginia. And this is cause for concern. This is cause for concern. And now they have a Muslim lieutenant governor. And we all know what the consequences of having Muslims in charge is going to be. So get ready. Virginia didn't flip overnight, but the consequences are probably going to hit just that hard. And I am sorry that it has come to that. I really am. What do we got? About 17 minutes left. All right, let's go back to this, because I don't want to. I've already put this story off a couple of times. China, as BZ is fond to say, is our enemy. And China, as reported by Breitbart, PJ Media, a few other outlets, they reported that projections are that there will be 1 million Chinese nationals eligible to vote in our elections by 2030. This isn't a conspiracy theory. Peter Schweitzer exposed this. This is straight math colliding with policy. This is mass legal and illegal immigration, naturalization pipelines, and almost no enforcement. And this is the result. And if they can shuttle so many people over here, they don't need to hack voting machines. If they can legally register voters. They kept telling us foreign interference in our elections is a myth, right up until it became a demographic strategy. This is what Breitbart calls the Manchurian generation. If you've ever seen the Manchurian Candidate, well, the most recent movie was okay. The original with, I believe, Angela Lansbury was phenomenal and scary. But this is the Manchurian generation. Has nothing to do with ethnicity or race. It has to do with ideology and geopolitics. And as I said, China is our enemy. And citizens raised under the CCP worldview, educated in CCP controlled systems, and socialized under anti-American, anti-Western narratives, those are the people that are going to be eligible to vote in our elections. And I said this about Barack Obama. He was not raised in the United States. Whether you think he's American or not is irrelevant. He was not raised in the United States. He was raised by anti-American communists. And he was the Manchurian candidate at that point. He had no love for America. He didn't know anything about American values. He said in a speech he wanted to fundamentally transform America. You don't want to fundamentally transform something you love. You want to improve it, sure. You want the best for it, sure. But you don't want to fundamentally transform it. But this is what is in the pipeline if we continue to allow this. 1 million Chinese nationals voting in our elections is a problem, is a huge problem. And just because they're citizens does not mean that they are loyal to this country. Not by a long, just look at what's going on in Minneapolis. Look at what's going on in Chicago. So citizenship does not necessarily mean loyalty, and voting rights does not mean automatic national allegiance. We used to, during the Cold War, we vetted people intensely to make sure that they comported with American values. I mean, think back to last summer when we brought I think it was like 50 or 60 South Africans over to this country to avoid being harmed or killed in their own country. What did you notice? Those people came over here grateful, waving American flags. Had nothing to do with whether or not they were white or black. They were grateful to be here. And if they stay here and they go down the path of becoming naturalized citizens, I have no doubt what their allegiance is going to be. But you have people in Minneapolis changing the state flag to resemble the Somali flag. You have people crossing the border illegally, waving the Mexican flag, the Guatemalan flag, waving the flags of their home countries. You have actual communities in Texas raising Pakistani flags. That should never be allowed. And it should never be allowed that we have 1 million Chinese nationals loyal to the CCP voting in our elections. This is completely unacceptable. Completely unacceptable. This is the natural result of a Chinese influence campaign. They've gotten into our educational institutions. They've gotten into our businesses, and they've found loopholes to our immigration policy. And now they're engaged in a plan to normalize Chinese influence in our political system. And politicians have allowed it. Do you think the driver that Dianne Feinstein had for ever how many 30 years or whatever it was, do you really think that he was just a driver? Of course not. He was a Chinese spy. And I have no doubt that he influenced a lot of what Dianne Feinstein was doing. And we all know about Eric Swallowell and Fang Fang. This what I really don't understand is how so many people on the left are so vocal when it comes to Russia. They were so sure that President Trump was a Russian asset. But now that we have all of this Chinese influence, crickets. No one's saying anything about Chinese influence. This is institutional cowardice when it comes to confronting China. And I don't understand why. Well, maybe it's because they only care when the interference helps the wrong party. And China, or the left is completely aligned with China. Tim Walz, I don't know if he took his honeymoon there, but he visited China numerous times. I have no doubt that he is influenced by the CCP. So in 2030, there could be as many as 1 million CCP aligned voters concentrated in urban areas and the coastal elites in potentially very decisive swing races. This isn't about flipping America overnight. This is about a slow, incremental access and a slow, incremental change in control. Borders define nations. Voters define futures. And pretending otherwise is just suicidal empathy. Now, President Trump, he has resolved the border issue for now, as long as we can codify some of what he did into law. It'll be tougher for the left to overturn that. But 1 million Chinese voters, plus all of the illegal aliens that are here, and I don't want to hear any nonsense about them not being eligible to vote. We all know that they have. It's not going to take any time to look it up. You don't lose a country all at once. You lose it one election at a time. And if we're not careful, who knows what happens in 2030? If we're not careful, 2030 could be it if we let this happen. All right, y'all, we are almost out of time. I in an older iteration of the show, when it was called the Liberty Cast, I used to do this segment called Adventures of the Galactically Stupid. And you know that there was infinite material for us to choose from when it came to that. But one of the worst offenders that I've seen in a while is Ketanji Brown Jackson. This woman, I don't know how she graduated law school, quite frankly. She had, she was in oral arguments. She was hearing oral arguments about Hawaii prohibiting handguns on private property. And you just have to hear this. You just have to hear this, because this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. Check this out.
Justice Jackson?
So I guess I really don't understand your response to Justice Gorsuch on the black codes. I mean, I thought the black codes were being offered here under the Bruin test to determine the constitutionality of this regulation. And it's because we have a test that asks us to look at the history and tradition. The fact that the black codes were at some later point determined themselves to be unconstitutional doesn't seem to me to be relevant to the assessment that Bruin is asking us to make.
Now, there are reports that Justice Thomas was actually face-palming during this section of oral arguments, listening to her talk, but let's continue.
So can you say more about that?
Absolutely. Black codes were unconstitutional from the moment of their inception because they are pretextual laws that are designed to ensure that newly freed slaves are returned to a condition of sharecropping.
Okay, let me stop you there. They were not deemed unconstitutional at the time that they were enacted. They were part of the history and tradition of the country. And when we...
She's talking about the history and tradition standard set by Bruin. Yes, the black codes are part of the historical record, but they were not tradition, and they were struck down. It's
have a test now that's asking us to look at what people were doing back then. I don't understand why they should be excluded.
Because they are outliers. They are by definition unconstitutional. They have
found later,
unconstitutional.
Afterwards, not at the time. And if the test says what's happening at the time tells us what's constitutional for this purpose, why aren't they in?
Respectfully, a law is always unconstitutional. When it's from its inception,
so the history doesn't matter. We shouldn't care about the history then.
We should deeply care about the history, but the whole point of the Bruin framework is as follows. The history and tradition of the Second Amendment are particularly important because it is codifying a pre-existing right. To figure out in sort of common law fashion what the national history and tradition are, you throw out outliers. And I can think of no greater outlier than blatantly unconstitutional laws that flipped what had been the tradition in states like Louisiana. And during the period before those states were readmitted to the Union, for the purpose of trying to reduce newly freed slaves back to conditions of servitude, made it a new crime, new trespass, in order to go about armed on private property. Those are obvious outliers.
All right.
Wow. This is a Supreme Court justice. Again, mystified. All right. That is, that's going to do it for us. We're not here to just, well, first of all, I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank everyone in the chat for being here. We really appreciate it. Thank you all for tuning in and watching. We are not just here to fill airtime. We are not just here to as BZ says, bloviate. And I'm trying to be respectful with that word, BC. But we are here to equip Christian men, equip everyone really, and to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ and carry the banner of faith, freedom, and hope into the next generation. So if anything that was said today, anything that you heard matters, please don't just watch, but share it. Bring another man into this fight. And if you want to wear what you stand for, like this great We the People shirt, head over to missionreadymen.com, click Shop 7 Armors, and check out all the great designs we have over there that talk about bold faith, true grit, and unapologetic patriotism. And remember, when seconds count, the police are only minutes away, but the Lord is right there with you. So keep your prayers going up and your head on a swivel. God bless.